He was born James Langston Hughes on February 1st, 1901 in Joplin, Missouri. He was born to mother Carrie Mercer Langston and father James Nathaniel Hughes. Hughes's father had left them at an early age to travel to various countries such as Mexico to escape racial segregation issues in the United States. Although Hughes was born in Joplin, Missouri, his mother moved them to Kansas, Missouri, where his grandmother, Mary Patterson Langston, could primarily raise him. It was at this point in his life that his grandmother instilled the importance of heroism and preservation of the black race through short stories. It was these values and ideology that later influenced his themes of equality and working-class pride of African Americans in his poetry. Influenced by Walt Whitman and Carl Sandburg, two poets he admired, he focused his life on writing poetry. He attended Columbia University, and in 1921, his first famous poem, The Negro Speaks of Rivers, was published in the Crisis magazine.
I've known rivers ancient as the world and older than the flow of human blood in human veins. My soul has grown deep like the rivers. I bathed in the Euphrates when dawns were young. I built my hut near the Congo, and it lulled me to sleep. I looked upon the Nile and raised the pyramids above it. I heard the singing of the Mississippi when Abe Lincoln went down to New Orleans, and I've seen its muddy bosom turn all golden in the sunset. I've known rivers, ancient, dusky rivers. My soul has grown deep like the rivers.
The Crisis magazine was the official magazine of the NAACP. It was founded by W.E.B. Du Bois, who happened to edit Langston Hughes' work when it was published in the magazine. The Crisis magazine published stories on brutal lynchings against African Americans and raised awareness, as well as publishing on Black excellence in their community. They shared art, poetry, and music by African Americans, which is why the magazine played such a major role in the Harlem Renaissance. While Hughes was at Columbia University, he began to indulge deeper into the arts of the Harlem Renaissance. His poetry and his beliefs centered around supporting the new Negro movement during the Harlem Renaissance, where Black people were redefining their identity and what it should mean to be African American in America. The Harlem Renaissance was a call to celebrate Black arts, music, literature, and more, and redefine the term Negro into a sense of pride instead of shame. Hughes is known for founding the style of poetry called jazz poetry, which was very popular during the Harlem Renaissance.
Droning a drowsy, syncopated tune, rocking back and forth to a mellow croon. I heard a Negro play.
In 1926, Hughes published his essay titled The Negro Artist and the Racial Mountain, bringing awareness to the Black community that African Americans at times have a tendency to ignore their heritage and instead absorb white culture. Quoting Langston Hughes, "This is the mountain standing in the way of any true Negro art in America, this urge within the race towards whiteness." Many of Hughes' poems, such as Dreams, spoke of hopes and dreams within the Black race that inspired African Americans during the Civil Rights Movement to prosper and recognize self-worth. His poetry ignited change of perception during a time when America was trying to halt Black social mobility. Hughes' strong sense of racial pride influenced and inspired many other historical figures during the Civil Rights Movement. One man heavily influenced and admired by Langston Hughes was his close friend, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Hughes wrote about dreams when racism meant that African Americans' dreams were heavily ignored. His poetry prompted Black people to pursue their dreams, Black people such as Martin Luther King. Hughes's poetry heavily influenced Martin Luther King's rhetoric. On April 5, 1959, Martin Luther King made a connection to Hughes's poem Dream Deferred in his sermon. MLK said, "I am personally the victim of deferred dreams, of blasted hopes." He spoke of this while preaching of disappointment. MLK looked to Hughes's perception on African American dreams to influence his most famous line, "I have a dream." After some time traveling, Hughes permanently settled down in Harlem, where he would be fully focused on devoting his time, his effort, and his literature to the Harlem Renaissance. Langston Hughes was one of the most important writers and thinkers of this time, the time of the Harlem Renaissance. He gave life to new ideas of art that had never been touched on before. Art that inspired African Americans to be creative in their own ways. On May 22, 1967, James Langston Hughes died at age 66 due to cancer. Still admired by many, there is a Langston Hughes Memorial Library located at Lincoln University where he once attended.